The time is precisely 1:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here's the news edited by Lal Mallavarachi and read by Chandima Veerakorn. Headlines. The government says that the local debt restructuring process will lead to strengthen the local banking system. Some of the beneficiary families will be paid the allowances this month as usual. A committee will be appointed to prepare laws to secure and safeguard religious freedom. UNESCO declared Mahavansha as a World Documentary Heritage. The World Bank provides $500 million to Sri Lanka in budgetary support. In news overseas, Russia says Wagner mutiny leaders will be brought to justice. In sports news, Scotland won the toss and chose to field first against Sri Lanka in their last preliminary round game of the World Cup qualifier today. Local stories in detail. State Minister for Finance Dr. Ranjit Siambalapitiya says that the local debt restructuring process will lead to strengthen the local banking system. There will be no impact on the people's deposits or interest income given during the local debt restructuring process. He also said that the EPF and ETF and the pension benefits too will not be affected. He said that what the debt restructuring will include were measures such as loan repayment postponement, interest reduction, and payment period extension, etc. He stressed that personal deposits and social security schemes such as EPF, ETF, and pension benefits will not be touched. State Minister Dr. Ranjit Siambalapitiya requests the public not to be misled by rumours spread by various malicious elements. The Samruddhi Development Department says that the Samruddhi beneficiary families will be paid the allowances this month as usual. The allowances will be given soon after the Treasury releases required funds. Director General of the department, Bandula Tilakasiri, says that from next month, some of the allowances and other benefits will be paid to the relevant individuals and families under the Asvasuma social welfare program. President Ranil Wickremesinghe will convene a special meeting with the ruling party parliamentarians tomorrow. The discussion will take place at 5 p.m. at the Presidential Secretariat. Obtaining views and proposals from the public on the proposed electricity tariff revision started this morning at the Mihilaka Madura premises in the BMICH. Public can express their views at the committee that will be there until 5 p.m. today. The Cabinet of Ministers has approved a proposal submitted by the Minister of Buddhist Affairs on appointing a committee to prepare laws to secure and safeguard religious freedom and incidents of defaming other religions and religious leaders. Accordingly, the proposed committee will be included with leaders of major religions, legal experts, media and civil activists, and other relevant experts. The committee would make necessary recommendations, studying all relevant factors. The Mahavansha, one of the world's longest unbroken historical accounts presenting Sri Lanka's history in chronological order from the 6th century BC, has been included by the UNESCO in the list of the 64 new items of documentary heritage inscribed on the memory of the World International Register in The UNESCO said that the Mahavansha, one of the world's longest unbroken historical accounts, is the first of its kind in South Asia, initiating a mature historiographical tradition. It has presented Sri Lanka's history in a chronological order from the 6th century BC. The authenticity of the facts provided in the document has been confirmed through archaeological research conducted in Sri Lanka and India. It is an important historical source in South Asia containing crucial information about the lifetime of the Buddha, the Emperor Ashoka, and the rise of Buddhism as a world religion. The document played a significant role in popularizing Buddhism in Southeast Asia and contributed singularly to the identity of Emperor Ashoka in Indian history. The existence of a number of manuscripts of the Mahavamsha in several countries, as well as the translation of the text to several Southeast Asian and European languages, stand testimony to its immense historical, cultural, literal, linguistic, and scholarly values, the UNESCO added. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with the local stories, the Ministry of Agriculture says that they have received information that relief given by the government to people is being sabotaged by a group of officers of the relevant institutions for political interests. At a press briefing held at the ministry, the Minister Mahinda Amaraveera said that stern actions will be taken against such officers in future. Some officials in some areas have delayed distribution of fertilizer vouchers. Certain officers have not properly distributed the fuel subsidy to farmers in some areas. The minister pointed out that some officers who are favouring some political parties attempt to gain political mileage by disrupting government's relief programs. To conclude the local news, the headlines again. The government says that the local debt restructuring process will lead to strengthen the local banking system. Samurdhi beneficiary families will be paid the allowances this month as usual. A committee will be appointed to prepare laws to secure and safeguard religious freedom. UNESCO declared Mahavamsha as a World Documentary Heritage. The World Bank provides $500 million to Sri Lanka in budgetary support. That ends the local news for now.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
And on the main news story, Sri Lanka will enter into an agreement with the World Bank for $500 million in budgetary support after the cabinet approved it today, the biggest funding tranche for the island since an International Monetary Fund deal in March. Sri Lanka is emerging out of its worst economic crisis in 7 decades, and its economy is expected to shrink 2% this year before returning to growth next year. The government said today that funding from the lender will come in 2 tranches. That ends the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watch Light. State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinghe says the government has made arrangements to file the appeals or objections under the Aswasuma welfare program using the online system to be handed over personally to the divisional secretaries. The hotline number 1924 is operational from Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for information. The State Minister added that the final beneficiary list of the Aswasuma Social Welfare Program has not been published yet, and after evaluating the appeals and objections received, the GAs and AGAs will publish the final beneficiary list. That ends Watch Light. Moving on to the world news, the headlines. Russia says Wagner mutiny leaders will be brought to justice. A man shot dead in busy Sydney shopping area car park. New Zealand seeks to exterminate predators to save native birds. Russian President Vladimir Putin has accused the leaders of last weekend's Wagner mutiny of wanting to see Russia choked in bloody strife. In a short speech full of vitriol, Mr. Putin vowed to bring the organizers of the revolt to justice. But he called regular Wagner troops patriots who would be allowed to join the army, go to Belarus, or return home. He did not directly name Wagner boss, who earlier denied trying to overthrow Mr. Putin's regime. A man has died after being shot while sitting in a car in one of Sydney's busiest shopping districts, police say. The victim, aged in his 40s, was targeted in a car park at 8:30 this morning, according to New South Wales Police. He died at the scene. The man has not been identified by authorities, but Australian media reported he was suspected to be a figure in the illegal cocaine trade. Local police and homicide squad detectives are investigating. On a bright Sunday morning, the wildlife lovers gather in Miramar, a scenic peninsula, on a mission to exterminate rats. Predator-free Miramar aims to protect birds in this area of Wellington, New Zealand's capital, by riding it off rats, every last one of them. After donning high-vis jackets, the volunteers are handed peanut butter, ideal bait for rodents, and poison. Each is assigned a patch where they will check coil traps and toxin-laced bait boxes. Good luck, fellows, says Dan Koo, who leads the group. To end the world news, the headlines again. Russia says Wagner mutiny leaders will be brought to justice. A man shot dead in busy Sydney shopping area car park. New Zealand seeks to exterminate predators to save native birds. That ends the world news.
Development News is brought to you by
Vacancies for women from Deshakti Lanka for housemaids in Kuwait, Oman and Saudi Arabia for ages 23 to 58 years. Contact number 037 7500 500.
And on development news, the 2 aircraft undergoing sea checks will finally return to operations next week, a statement from Sri Lankan Airlines said. Sea checks are done to check the serviceability of the aircraft. The airliners said once that is done, the current crisis will be eased off to a certain extent. It said more positive changes will be in the way of a short-term lease extension for an aircraft that was supposed to be returned, 4 replacement engines for Airbus A320 neo aircraft on ground, and the arrival of a newly leased Airbus A330, all of which would bump the Sri Lankan Airlines fleet to about 20 aircrafts. That ends the development news.
Vacancies for women from Deshakti Lanka for housekeepers, home cooks, caretakers and home nurses in Kuwait, Oman, Saudi Arabia and Singapore for ages 23 to 57 years. Salaries starting from 156,000 rupees. Interviews with foreign agents are now on. Come whether you have a passport or not. Branches, Colombo, Kurunagala, Anuradhapura and Matara. Contact number 0377 500 500.
Moving on to sports news, Sri Lanka meets Scotland in their last preliminary round game of the World Cup qualifying tournament today. The match is played now in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. Scotland won the toss and chose to field first. Sri Lanka were 23 for no loss in 3.1 overs a short while ago. The first ODI between Sri Lanka and New Zealand women's teams is delayed due to wet outfield in Galle International Stadium at present. That ends the sports news.
Go ekakiyana youth ekata life eke change ekata niyameta set wenna as wahagena dakapu hina habe karanna youth ekata niyameta set wenna friendship eka menna.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
In view of next Friday being declared as a special bank holiday, the 30th of June 2023 has also been declared as a market holiday by the Colombo Stock Exchange. The government had declared a special bank holiday in a special gazette notification issued by Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena. Accordingly, many leading business places will remain closed on Friday. That ends the business news.
Business News, Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go එකක් තියන youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගින හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Taking a look at the economic news, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has expressed his and the UN's support for Sri Lanka's economic recovery and debt sustainability endeavours in a meeting with President Ranil Wickremesinghe. A recent statement from the President's media division said that Guterres had assured the President of strong commitment to assisting Sri Lanka when the two met on the sidelines of the summit for a new global financial pact last Thursday in France. That ends the economic news.
Weather report.
And finally, we take a look at the weather report. The Met Department says showers or thundershowers will occur at times in Western and Sabaragamu provinces in Kandy, Nuwara Eliya, Galle and Mathura districts. Several spells of showers will occur in Northwestern province. Showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in Uva province and in Ampara and Batticaloa districts during the evening or at night. Fairly strong winds, about 40 to 45 kilometers per hour, can be expected at times in western slopes of the Central Hills, northern and north-central provinces, and in Puttalam, Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. That ends the weather report. And to conclude this bulletin of news, the headlines again. The government says that the local debt restructuring process will lead to strengthen the local banking system. Some of the beneficiary families will be paid the allowances this month as usual. A committee will be appointed to prepare law to secure and safeguard religious freedom. UNESCO declared Mahavanshaya as a World Documentary Heritage. The World Bank provides $500 million to Sri Lanka in budgetary support. In news overseas, Russia says Wagner mutiny leaders will be brought to justice. In sports news, Scotland won the toss and chose to field first against Sri Lanka in their last preliminary round game of the World Cup qualifier today. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.